Melian is teaching Katie how to play one of their musical instruments. And she's a little clumsy with it at first, like you are with any
use this as an
instrument.
excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
This is Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Welcome aboard.
Jean-Luc Picard to the Starship Enterprise.
You want to review your rapid progress?
That nonsense is centuries behind us. To the Starship Enterprise.
Oh, yeah?
And it's enough, damn it!
Tempo, mon capitan.
To the Starship Enterprise.
But you can't deny that you're still a dangerous, savage child race.
Of the planet Earth.
You just don't get it, do you, Jean-Luc? That is the exploration that awaits you. Not mapping stars and studying nebula, but charting the unknown possibilities of existence.
Joe Lontrue, and welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a comedy Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
And we just finished up our fantastic weekend at QuadCon in Nebraska. I'm sure we had a great time, and we chatted with lots of great people.
I'm sure we didn't get any tattoos or piercings since we were in a mall.
Right. Well, you remember those that one group? They were really great to talk to.
Oh yeah. And that one girl.
Oh yes. Oh, so many great people. So many great memories. Thanks everybody for coming to see us in Nebraska. And maybe once we're actually back from Nebraska, we'll have more to say about it. But
I'm sure it'll be amazing.
Yes, it's a good time.
We can bash the drive up there for sure.
Yeah.
The
Oh
next
my
episode.
God. Yes. Well, that's something I'm definitely not looking for. But at least there'll be the two of us, and we can take turns and switch off driving and stuff, because that is like the longest 7 hours across nothing that there is.
If you can put up with my singing, because I don't mind driving.
We gotta rock out though. Yeah. Hell yeah.
I'm just gonna, and that's what keeps me focused and awake is singing at the top of my lungs.
I also want to tell you about something that happened recently here in the house that I'm really happy about.
Okay.
Because, when we moved out here, and the story that we've told several times, when we moved out here, though, my son was still I think he was in 6th grade. And so we left Florida, and the kids were both doing Florida virtual school. And we did not tell them that we moved until the end of that year. So they finished Florida virtual school from Colorado, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then my son started 7th grade in person for the first time since COVID, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it was rough. Really rough go. Middle school is hard to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And
That
then-
age.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
And of course, the very first thing he did was find himself a bully. And it was verbal, and we were in the office every week trying to get them to fucking do something about it. And the adults in charge did nothing, and it turned physical. And then he got cornered in a bathroom, shoved the kid out of his way to make an escape. And guess who got a detention? My son.
Not the other guy?
Oh, they both did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But my son was trying to defend himself to escape. Not to retaliate, but they call it retaliation anyway, whatever. And we said, that's fucking stupid. You're not going to this school anymore.
Yeah.
And so then he went back online to finish out middle school. So then we started him at this high school that it's a charter. It's kind of an ag-based school.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, we really love it. The way it approaches learning is completely different from traditional school. All of their classes are interconnected. So the shit that you're learning about in social studies connects to the things that you're learning about in math and science. And so it's
Nice.
a very like holistic approach to learning, and very student led. And over the course of his freshman year, we have seen him really start to like come out of his shell and make friends. And
That's great.
he had his first sleepover
Okay.
just recently, like this past weekend. Because his core group now is a boy and a girl, and they've been here all fucking weekend, basically.
Nice.
Yeah. And we're like we've created the safe house. Like if you ever feel like you're in trouble or you need whatever, like we're the parents that are like, call us, we will come help you. If you're afraid to call your own parents or you're afraid to whatever, like if you need help, you can call and no questions asked, we'll come get you and take care of you, whatever, take you home.
Cool.
So that's kind of the parents of the group that we've become. And so they all feel very comfortable here, and it was great. My son had his friend stayed over that night. They were going to try to pull an all-nighter, but I think they did get some sleep. But it's really great seeing him come out of his shell and
be a kid and be a teenager. That's amazing.
Like this is what I wanted for him. All those years, like 5th grade, I wanted him to have, and he did. He had great friends in Florida, but we weren't able to do like all of the sleepovers and the in-person stuff because of COVID.
Right.
So it delayed that for him. So I'm glad that, and I wondered like, oh my God, is this ever going to happen for him? Like, is he ever going to have, some of those like hallmark childhood moments, right?
Yeah.
And he got them.
Oh, that's amazing.
One thing we won't do, though, is kidnap any of those children and try to give them to different parents because they can't have children.
That's really fucked up.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. Like they did this week in Star Trek The Next Generation. It's Season 1, Episode 17, When the Bough Breaks.
Commander, you'll soon be getting an intruder alert.
What? Got something, sir.
Intruder alert, sir.
It's an old-style starship, sir. Constellation class, heading this way under impulse com.
Number 1, kindly take charge of our guests until we have time to decide what we're going to do with them. Sir, number 1, keep them out of my way.
This show is infuriating to me.
Yeah.
But I'll yeah.
Save that for when it happens.
Yeah.
Well, if the title of this episode didn't clue you in, we are immediately communicated that this is going to be an episode about kids because there's one running down a hallway, like bobbing and weaving, dodging around various crew people until finally he unfortunately slams right into Riker and like bounces off of him and falls backward on the floor. Like, did they have a stunt kid to do this? Because this kid like bounced.
Kids are pretty like
kids bounce.
What do you call them?
Yeah.
They bouncy and bendy. So, but yeah, this little guy, his name is Harry. Apparently, Riker knows all the kids on the Enterprise.
Well, this is part of his directive, right? Picard has basically said, "You're in charge.
I'm keeping the kids.
Keep these kids away from me. You're in charge of the kids, Bill."
But this kid is happens to be running away from his dad. He's basically trying to get out of the calculus class because he hates calculus.
This is so much me as a kid and my son.
Everyone.
Why do I need to learn calculus? This is stupid. I don't need to know this shit.
I don't even remember calculus, and I'm pretty sure I haven't used it.
I never took it. And funny story, the algebra that I was taking, so it was like algebra, geometry, algebra 2, calculus was the progression, right? And so I took algebra, geometry, and then I was in algebra 2, I think. I don't remember. I don't think I took algebra 2. But our algebra teacher basically told the class, unless you are going to become a math teacher or some kind of engineer or, like rocket science level engineer or whatever, like you're really not going to use most of this in your life.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, thank you for confirming my feelings. Peace.
but you have to like go through if you're in the class, you got to take a class and pass it. Which sucks. And I have strong feelings about it, but also I have strong feelings about how shitty this parenting moment is because like the father, Dr. Bernard, he apologizes to Riker for his kid running through the hallways. And Riker's like, no biggie. It happens like every few weeks at this point. I'm starting to get used to it. But then he basically tells his son, like, you have to learn calculus because you have to. Yeah. And that was a shit answer when I was learning algebra in the 90s, and it's a shit answer here. Well, you just have to. That's a shit answer. Give me a good reason why. What am I going to use it? How is it going to help me? Like, well, they're in space. I mean, so you got to know some stuff. Because most of these guys are probably going to go to Starfleet.
So that's your answer then. Your answer then is this is how it's going to benefit you later in life, not you have to learn it because I said so or because you have to.
Well, yeah.
Right? Right. Let's talk about this kid. I love Harry. He was so much fun.
He's such a cutie.
Philip Waller plays 10-year-old Harry, and his father, Dr. Bernard, played by Dirk Torsick. Dirk had a bunch of guest and supporting roles over the years. When Riker gets to the bridge, everyone is gathered around Tasha's station, and they notice him limping. And he's like, oh, this kid just bumped into me or whatever. Like,
he's so cool. He's so cool. I swear.
This limp walk that he does, though, it reminded me of every John Wayne impersonation that the cast of Whose Line did as they walk across the stage with their little limp and their, well, I'll tell you, you're something, like the John Wayne walk.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh, it's caught on fire.
We better put it out.
Did you bring a hose with you, Pilgrim?
There's a hose right over here.
Picard lets Riker know that they've been following some energy breadcrumbs that's led them to their current location. They're in a near star system called Epsilon Minos, and Picard knew that Riker would be interested in it because apparently there's like the Space Atlantis legend.
Another paradise planet.
Mm-hmm. when it's Riker, it's always some sort of paradise planet.
This planet is called Aldea, this mythical world, and Riker describes it.
His face lights up.
Yeah. He's like, let's find this place because I'm going to get some booty. And he describes this as a wondrous mythical world, advanced culture, centuries old, self-contained and peaceful. And their technology is apparently so advanced that it provides for the daily needs of all the citizens. So there's no need for oligarchs or billionaires or work.
Or algebra or calculus, apparently.
Yes. They can dedicate their lives to art and culture, but it's just a myth.
Hey, you making a move with my girl?
No, sir.
He did too. He touched me.
Ugh, go wash. You'll get warts.
No, you see, that's just a myth.
Yeah, but she's my myth.
No, myth.
Yes?
What the hell?
As Riker continues talking about how the legend says that these people were able to cloak their planet completely and hide from the rest of the universe, Troy starts getting feelings. There's nothing on the scanners, but she is sensing thousands of minds very close by, and soon we see the stars sort of wobble as a planet appears.
What's so interesting about this system?
Aldea.
Data and Geordi quickly work out that this planet has a very sophisticated cloaking device. They get scanned from the planet, and Picard makes a phone call. We come in peace, or whatever. And the woman who answers the phone, Rochella, is like, yeah, we know. Picard's trying to understand why these people would choose now to reveal themselves after hiding for a millennia. And Rochella's like, well, let's do lunch, and I'll tell you all about it. And suddenly, she and a man appear on the bridge, which startles everyone. And of course, Worf goes right to fight pose.
Well, just as soon as she got it out of her mouth, that we'll happy to meet you. They're there, and they didn't go to the transporter room, and they didn't go through the normal protocols. Like when you beam to the ship, Dr. Crusher has to see you for decontamination. And then just for them to appear on the bridge, security. I mean, you can't do that. And so when they appear, they seem a little disoriented, and like the light, it's too much light. They're just seem to be sensitive to light.
So here we have Rochella, played by Brenda Strong, who was a nurse in Spaceballs.
Yep, I've seen her in a bunch of stuff. She's like B-movie queen, I think, at that time.
She also played a doctor in one of my favorite witchy movies, The Craft. But she might be more recognized as Mary Alice Young in 180 episodes of Desperate Housewives, which I did not watch.
I did not watch either.
Or more recently in Supergirl and 13 Reasons Why.
Supergirl, the TV series, I've seen some of it, and I didn't see the other one.
No. And then we have Radu, who is the first appointee, a.k.a. leader of the Aldean government. He's played by Jerry Hardin, who famously returns to TNG as the great Samuel Clemens.
I've long been interested in the notion of time travelers. In fact, I wrote a book about it.
Okay. Well, because we had so much makeup on.
Yeah, right? I would not have been like, oh, I know who that is when I saw him. Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
He also plays another character in Voyager coming up, but you, Allie, probably know him better from the X-Files.
Yep. He's played on a lot of stuff, but he was Mulder's dad, I believe.
He played Deep Throat.
Oh, no, he wasn't Deep Throat. Wasn't he Mulder's dad?
Searching.
Including the character nicknamed Deep Throat in the X-Files.
Oh, okay. So Bill, he wasn't. Yeah, he was Deep Throat.
See, I didn't watch the X-Files at all, so
I did.
I don't know what any of this means.
There's the smoking man who is possibly Mulder's real father, but then there's Bill Mulder who raised him, and Mulder grew up in thinking that was his father but his mom had an affair with the smoking man. Him, his father, and the smoking man, and a bunch of other old white men in suits were part of this conglomerate of the government. Anyway. But I don't know why they called him Deep Throat.
Oh my.
Searching.
Oh, there is a historical character named Deep Throat, a secret informant who provided information in 1972 to Bob Woodward.
That has to do with Watergate, right?
Yeah.
That I knew. I knew there was a real Deep Throat, but I couldn't remember why they called him Deep Throat on
Interesting. Yeah, well that's what it is. It's like an homage. Welcome to the X-Files show, everybody.
Anyway.
So we learn here that the only way through the planetary shielding is that the Aldean's system of transport. So that the Enterprise transporters are not going to be able to go through that. That seems important. Like it'll be important later.
Yeah. And they can just, and they're the only ones, they have these hexagon devices on their arm, and those are their personal transporter devices, and they just click it and then poof, they're gone.
You know what that reminded me of? The mobile emitter for the holographic doctor in Voyager.
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much like same placement, same kind of idea. Picard is presented with a cornucopia of flowers, and when they're invited down to the planet for a visit, Radu says, Commander Riker will prepare for your arrival. And this shocks everybody because nobody has said Riker's name in front of these aliens. And it turns out that the Aldeans have been watching Star Trek The Next Generation on local CBS Channel 3, so they already know everybody. Rochelle is like, Bill, I have some questions about Angel 1, if you don't mind. That seemed like a really interesting kind of culture there. They have just enough time here between the Aldeans leaving and the meeting on the planet for Troy to put her voice to what she sensed during this visit. The Aldeans want something. She doesn't know what, but they want something we have and something we value greatly, and they're afraid that we're not going to be willing to give it up.
And again, just as they're saying that, they don't give anybody any fucking warning. They're like, hey, we're ready to receive you, Commander Riker. And they yank Riker, Troy, and Crusher right off the bridge. I feel like that's like an invasion of...
Yeah. Consent.
Yeah.
On the planet, they're greeted by Rochella, Radu, and Duana, played by Ivy Bethune, who played Old Lady Peabody in Back to the Future.
What is it? What is it for?
Looks like an airplane. Without wings.
That ain't no airplane. Look.
So
Okay.
do you
Another
remember?
one of your favorite?
Yes,
No.
I know. Do you? Okay.
No, I do not. I just don't even. No, I do not.
Okay. In Back to the Future, they're at the mall, the Twin Pines Mall.
Okay.
Right. And they go back to the past in the DeLorean, and before the mall was built, there was a farm on that place, and so they go into this farm and they crash into the barn with the DeLorean, and that's the Peabody's farm, the Twin Pines farm or whatever it is, and Mr. and Mrs. Peabody come and open the door as they see Marty McFly getting out of the DeLorean, looking all like spaceman, and they freak out. That's her.
Cool.
Meanwhile, on the D, Wesley and Data are talking about how this, cloaking devices work generally when a bright yellow follow spot beam shines onto the bridge, blinding Worf and Tasha. This had to be a practical effect, right? They shot a light from off stage.
Yeah, it was a really good effect. It was like coming through the window and just going through over everyone on the bridge, and it lands on Wesley and kind of holds him there.
They can't put the shields up. They can't contact Riker. And these search beams are methodically searching the ship. And once the beam releases Wesley, we learn that the same thing happened all over the ship, only to the children. Speaking of children, back on the planet, Radu lays out the sitch. They want the Federation's help to rebuild their heritage because they've become completely sterile. Rochella was the last child born on this planet, and their own doctors aren't able to figure this mystery out. And although Dr. Crusher offers to help, these people's medical knowledge is supposedly far more advanced. They dismiss outright the idea that maybe Beverly could help them.
So he just casually mentions, can we have some of your children? And I don't know, this whole episode just bugged the crap out of me, as if it's like they don't understand love and attachment.
Right.
You can't ask someone for their children and expect them to be okay with it.
Right.
And then so he says, we need some of your kids. We'll work out some compensation, basically a trade. And Troy's like, that might be okay for some people, but humans are very attached to their children.
I like that each of their responses is very expertly tuned to that character and their experience. Because again, like you said, Troy is calm and rational, explaining humans are really attached to their kids, and that was not a good thing for you to ask.
Right.
And then Crusher, the mother, is like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
And then Riker has to be the leader here, and he reaffirms this position. No deal, Howie.
No deal.
And so Radu is like, well, that's really a shame. And they yoink the Starfleets back to the D. And then Wesley disappears. And then we get shots all over the ship of children disappearing. And I loved this. There's a girl playing a musical instrument. There's a little girl playing with a tribble. School children in a schoolroom, which we've never seen before, that I thought was great. Yeah.
Radu, exactly why were we invited here?
We need some of your children.
On the bridge, Picard is rip shit. They're going to get the parents together to, kind of group therapy them a little bit. And when Radu comes back on the screen and he promises, look, the children are safe. We will never harm them. And Picard's like, harm? You've already harmed them.
It's utter barbarity to yoink kids. It's kidnapping. And yeah, he is pissed.
Yeah. And when Radu is like, well, we'll start our discussions on what fair compensation for these children might be, Picard just fucking loses it on him.
He's like, well, we'll talk when you've calmed down. I'm like, oh, I'm mad. I'm mad. You've taken our children and you want us to calm down.
I have had to do that before in my customer service days at Disney.
Oh, I bet.
When I worked in ticketing, we had a lot of people that would buy the wrong ticket or whatever and come up to the window all pissed off because they didn't do the research or because the options were complicated or whatever the situation was. And they would come into the window and they're already at a 12 yelling and screaming. And I have said before, I am the person here who has the ability to help you resolve this problem, but I will not until you are calmer and able to have this conversation rationally and walk away. I've done that before. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, you didn't take nobody's kids.
True.
You are not the aggressor.
Right. So the children are gathered in a room, and Wesley's the oldest. So obviously, all these kids are scared, and they're kind of turning to him for reassurance or whatever that they're going to be safe. I didn't feel like these kids were scared enough, though. I feel like they should all have been. There should have been much more emotion from these kids, but they're child actors. You get what you get, I guess.
I don't know. They're in space, so they knew they got to know some sort of
crazy shit like this can happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. Radu comes in and introduces himself, and he already knows about Wesley. And he mentions something called the custodian, indicated that you would be the leader. And Wesley immediately it wants to know who the custodian is, and it's not a person. So I think we're dealing with some sort of fucking AI again, some computer that controls the planet.
Wesley's like, that custodian, its name wouldn't be Landrew, would it?
They love doing that.
The children are told they'll be provided anything they need or want, except going back home, of course. And Radu says they were all selected because they're special in some way. Little Alexandra, who I just fucking love this kid.
So
she
cute.
is so good. She's got her Tribble stuffy in her hand, and she goes up to Rochella and reaches out to shake her hand.
She's probably the youngest, most innocent. I think they definitely use her to sort of illustrate the innocence of a child.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what's happening, she's always so sweet and friendly.
Mm-hmm. Let's do a quick rundown of these child actors. Alexandra with the Tribble stuffy was played by twins, Jessica and Vanessa Bova, who did a ton of commercial work. They were in mostly commercials. Jandy Swanson plays Katie, and she's the one that was playing some kind of stringed futuristic instrument when she was snatched. Mackenzie Westmore, daughter of
Michael Westmore.
Makeup god Michael Westmore. Yep. She plays Rose.
Mm-hmm.
And Amy and Jeremy Wheaton, Will's siblings, Tara and Mason. So I win.
You win.
Ah.
I used to watch, there's this show called Face Off. I don't know if you've ever watched it before. It's sort of like a makeup reality show.
Oh yeah.
Where Mackenzie Westmore was the host.
No shit.
But yes, yeah. It was like good. It's probably on Netflix or something. It's like several seasons. Sarah D and I just huge fans of that show. We would like do a virtual watch together.
Production assistant Sarah D.
A production assistant Sarah D. Yes. Yeah, so her dad was a makeup artist, and she did a lot of stuff.
Well, I know I've heard like interviews with these people who were the makeup people on Star Trek, Westmore's specifically. Like there is a whole family history of the Westmore, that it is the Westmore makeup like legacy. The whole damn family has been doing this kind of work for a long, long time.
Right.
Generational work. Yeah. So the parents have all been gathered in the conference room where Crusher and Troy are trying to keep them calm. And Picard reinforces, we're not going to leave here without your kids. You have my word. We're going to get your kids back somehow. Or die trying, apparently.
He was planning to go ahead and talk with Radu about compensation just to buy time so they can figure out how the hell to get these kids back.
One of the things that I've found unbelievable in this whole, like the way the kids were reacting and stuff, right? Is on the planet now, Alexandra seems to be playing some hide and seek with Rochella and like not at all worried about this kidnapping situation. Like maybe it's because she's so young, it hasn't set into her yet that like this isn't just a daycare where you're going to play for a little while and then go home.
Right.
I don't know. I just felt weird about the lack of like, especially for specific ages. Like I feel like you'd be crying, I want to go home pretty nonstop. And then Rochella, like, jumps around the corner, like, I got you, and scoops her up. And Alexandra gives Rochella a huge hug and a big old kiss on the cheek. And like, I don't know. I didn't really buy this.
No, today's kids would be like, bitch, unhand me, bitch.
Right? Fucking stranger danger, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's adoption day on Aldea.
Ugh.
And as Wesley, Harry, and Katie are let in to meet their new parents, Radu explains that the family units here are made up of people of similar talents and interests. And Wesley's like, yeah, we already have those. Back on our ship, remember? We have families already.
Yeah. He's like, does Picard know you're doing this? He's not taking any shit.
Mm-hmm.
But And this is one of the parts of the show that just really bothered me of how these kids are just, oh, we've picked this family for you. And we
Yeah.
picked this family for you. Like they're commodities. Nobody cares about how the kids feel.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple named Lita and Ackland. Harry is going to go to them because they're artists. And Harry's like, well, I'm not an artist, but they, I guess, have been watching them. However, they were able to spy on the Enterprise.
Or that scan that they did.
Right. And so they know that he's got the potential, high potential to be an artist. And Harry kind of like, oh, like, hey, that's cool.
Lita and Akalon are played by Michelle Marsh and Dan Mason. Michelle famously played Hodel, daughter of Tevye, in the 1971 musical Fiddler on the Roof, including the movie version, the theatrical release.
Cool.
I loved Fiddler on the Roof. Oh my God, Fiddler is amazing. If I was a rich man, all day long I'd bitty bitty bum. If I were a wealthy man, I wouldn't have to work hard.
I thought that was Gwen Stefani's song.
What? No,
Wow.
That's Tevye from Fiddler on the Roof.
If I was a rich girl.
Yeah, she fucking stole that shit from Fiddler on the Roof.
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
That stealing bitch. That song stealing bitch.
Mm-hmm. Katie is next, and she's sold off to Melian. This really felt like
creepy.
The slaves are all up on the stage and they're being auctioned off or something. Like it felt real
exactly.
fucking wrong.
I hated it. Absolutely hated it. They are just property.
Yeah.
Fuck your feelings, kids. It's all about making us happy.
Yeah. So Katie's the one that was playing the musical instrument, and so she's going to go live with this old dude, Melian, who's the foremost musician on the planet. And that leaves Wesley. And Radu is like, listen, you're their leader. I'm the leader to leader. Let me clue you in on something. It's up to you to help these kids make the transition to acceptance of this situation because you're the leader. And listen, there's nothing you or the Enterprise can do about this, so you best be getting through the stages of grief quickly.
But he does say, we're doing this because we have no choice. The last parents were on their way to pick up the little redheaded girl, Alexandra. But Alexandra and Rochelle come in and they're playing, and Rochelle is like, no, I'll never let her go. So she's now feeling what she's putting the people on the Enterprise through.
Yes.
Like, wait a fucking minute.
And we never really come back to that.
No.
Back on the D, of course, they're working on finding a weakness in the planetary shielding that they might be able to exploit and steal their kids back. And they think there might be some holes that they could beam through. But also Data is working on the calculus for just transporting through the shield like the Aldeans do. So they got a couple options. And while they work on those, Picard is going to try to keep the dialogue open because they don't want to push too hard and cause the Aldeans to put up their cloaking device, disappear, and lose the children forever.
You have stolen our children away from their classrooms, away from their bedrooms, and you talk about compensation. You claim to be a civilized world, and yet you've just committed an act of utter barbarity.
Captain, we will continue these discussions when you calm down.
Back on the planet, Duana is introducing Wesley to Landru, the custodian, and they gave him third-level clearance, which seems pretty high to me for a kid that was just, yoinked and hasn't fully assimilated into this culture. But he starts asking questions of Duana, like what does the custodian do, who built it, when, what's its power source? And the answers are, it provides for us, very Landru. The progenitors built it hundreds of centuries ago. And why do you need to know about its power source? Like, isn't it enough that it provides for us? Wesley's like, I thought you've been watching Star Trek The Next Generation. Do you know me at all? I need to know how shit works. This is kind of my thing.
Wesley's so smart, though. He's already asking the right questions. And then he says, well, if you don't know how it works, then what are you going to do when it breaks? And she's like, why would we ever need to repair it? He says from time to time, every computer breaks, but then he corrects himself and says custodian. He knows it's a computer. It's like they don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And again, we have another one of these societies that doesn't think for themselves. They're just concerned with being happy, and all their needs are provided for. So they become dumb.
Star Trek loves to do this.
Well, I think that there's a point that needs to be made.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have education and learn about the world around you and how shit works, guess what?
Duana gets way out of her league here, and so she's like, well, quit asking me because I don't know the answers. Ask the custodian instead. But instead of asking the custodian the questions that he asked her that she couldn't answer, instead he says, can I see Harry? And on the screen we see Harry using some kind of laser woodworking tool to carve a block of wood, and he seems to be kind of enjoying himself learning all of this. Then he asks to see Alexandra, and she's with Rochella playing some kind of 3D computer game. But when Wesley tries to check on the rest of the kids, Duana tells the custodian to stop.
Apparently they have some work to do?
Well, those children aren't high enough on the call sheet for the scene where we see them. We'd have to pay them more if we filmed that part. But yeah, and Wesley has much to learn, apparently. So they're going to go off and do something else.
Before they go off to do whatever Duana has planned, he looks at this door off to the side, and it's got this weird symbol on it, and he wants to know what that is. And he asks, is it a power source maybe? And Duana, again, does not know.
She says it's forbidden. So it's definitely the power source. And Wesley is scheming already about
I love it.
How am I going to take this computer down and get the fuck out of here? I love it too. Wesley's great. We got a comment recently on social media or YouTube or something that somebody was like, it's really weird to hear people talk so positively about Wesley. I love Wesley.
I love him. Why would...
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's annoying like a kid, but he had a really important role, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I think the writers did him dirty in a lot of ways, but, you know, it's these moments that I think are redeeming.
Yeah.
On the bridge, Radu calls up. They're ready to negotiate. And so Picard's like, cool, I'd like to bring Dr. Crusher with me. And Radu's like, why, are you sick? But Picard has made a promise to the parents that Crusher will be their representative. So he's like, no, well, you see, Starfleet Regulation 6.75 requires that 2 staff officers be present for negotiations like this. And Radu is clearly annoyed, but he agrees and hangs up. And then Data's like, hang on a second.
What is that? What is that Regulation 6.57?
Picard's like, I don't know. I made that shit up. So Picard and Crusher appear in the chamber, and right away, the atmosphere is pretty hostile. Picard's request to see the children is quickly refused. Picard makes it clear he doesn't condone the Aldeans' approach here. And Radu is clear that returning the children is non-negotiable. So this seems like an impasse from jump.
And Rochella comes in, and she promises that they're going to be well taken care of, and they're going to have a wonderful life, and they're going to have a father and a mother.
One thing they try to argue is that, like, the Starfleets can just go have more kids.
Again, it's like they don't care about anybody's feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, well, you have, 5 kids and you can have more. So why can't you just give me one?
Don't you know what parental love is? And so Rochella, she promises that they're going to have a great life. But Crusher, being the doctors, is like, well, how can you be so sure that they can have kids? Because you can't. And she's already thinking maybe it's the environment, I think.
Yep.
But Radu disagrees also. They know nothing about their own technology. They have no doctors, so they have no idea. But he's pretty adamant that says this is just part of our genetics. It's us. It's not anyone else. So we can bring kids from outside and everything will be fine.
Picard is trying to diplomacy as best he can, not agreeing to anything, but keeping them talking. This is like hostage negotiation right here.
It is. It's like poker.
Yeah. But he does at least get them to agree to let Beverly see Wesley. And this is fucking brilliant.
I love this.
So Duana escorts Beverly to see Wesley, and she sneaks him the little scanner thingamabob from the tricorder.
Yeah, they go to hug, and Wesley and his mama doing some spycraft shit. I
Uh-huh.
love this spycraft shit. On the side where Dewana can't see, she turns on her tricorder, and then she slips him that little scanner thing, and he gets it right away. And he conceals it, walks over to Dewana, and he's like, "Yeah, they're taking great care of us." All the while, surely she would have seen that he's scanning her.
This was the most obvious, like, walk around, I'm scanning you play ever.
Yeah.
There's no way. This was so obvious that he.
Or Dewana is just really dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. This is either the sloppiest sneakery ever or Duana's an idiot.
But it was some cute spy shit between mom and son.
I loved the moment. Yeah. Yep. She returns back to Picard and the others, reporting back that Wes and everybody's fine. All the kids are good. And with that, they are yoinked back to the D to consider this final offer. They barely materialize, and Radu is on the view screen. And to prove just how powerful they are, he sends a repulsor beam at them that knocks the Enterprise 3 days away from the planet at Warp 9.
Jesus Christ. What a dick.
So they're going to have to head back. It's going to take 3 days, but Radu warns, if you don't accept our terms, we will throw you so far away, by the time you get back here, these kids will be grandparents. So they got some super powerful technology.
Captain, I'm not aware of Regulation 6.57.
No data, neither am I.
I see, sir. Oh, I see, sir.
But of course, this demonstration of power actually buys us 3 days to work on whatever readings Crusher was able to get.
Right.
But we've burned 2 of those days during the commercial break. So we still don't have answers yet. So back on the planet, Melian is teaching Katie how to play one of their musical instruments. And this instrument is able to play your feelings. And she's a little clumsy with it at first, like you are with any new instrument. He finally gets her to like close her eyes and try again. And this time she plays a really beautiful melancholic song. And Melian is like, it was watery eyes. Like he seemed very moved by this song.
Yeah. And then he goes, "That's great, but can you play something happy?" I'm like, "Bitch, I've just been kidnapped."
Right?
And Katie says, "Well, that's not the way I feel right now."
Yeah. She's like, I'm not happy and I don't want to do this anymore. Next, we visit Harry, who is having a much better time with his carving, especially if it means he never has to see a calculus textbook ever again.
Yep, there is that. And of course, they don't know what calculus is. And he's like, "Well, never mind.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it."
Trust me, it's stupid. You don't want to know. The Enterprise drops out of warp back into orbit of Aldea, and Picard picks up the phone again. Again, not making any solid agreements, just more discussion. Let's keep the lines of communication open. Data still hasn't found a way through the shield, but Beverly arrives to report on her findings. Duana is definitely experiencing chromosomal damage, and they're probably all dying, but she doesn't know yet if it's genetic or environmental. But it does explain why they can't conceive, their lack of appetite and sensitivity to light. So Crusher's going to keep working to see if she can figure out what's causing all of this.
Back on the planet, we go to Lita and Akalan, who are the artists, and they've got Harry. And Akalan is putting something on her hand, and she apparently has some sort of lesions where her husband comes up and asks her if the lesions are gone. So there's a good indication that they not only have the infertility, but they're actually having some sort of sickness as well. And then Harry shows them what he's created, and it's a dolphin. They used to have fish on their planet, but they don't have fish anymore. And then he starts talking about his dad. He's like, "Yeah, my dad is an oceanographer." And well, never mind. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because I think he realizes, even though he hates calculus, he's not going to see his dad anymore.
Yeah, I think he sees the disappointment in the adults' faces too when he starts talking about my dad and how great he is. And we used to live by the ocean, so we saw all these fish all the time or whatever. And yeah, and then he looks up at the adults and he's like, maybe I shouldn't talk about my real dad. So during this scene, I also want to mention Harry's got his like finished dolphin sculpture and he's kind of polishing or whatever. And the towel that he's using to polish this dolphin is like, which by the way, polish the dolphin is definitely masturbation euphemism.
No. Ew.
Hey, excuse me, Allie. I'm going to go upstairs and polish the old dolphin.
Ew, no. So weird.
This towel is like such a recognizable cloth. I think I have one in my guitar case right now, probably. It's this yellow, like microfiber kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
like
it's
a
got,
chamois.
what are those shears called that have the like zigzaggy?
Zigzag?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Rochella is rocking Alexandra in their room, and Alexandra starts asking for her mommy. So it's all of this is to show that like their initial excitement at being here and learning all these new things is wearing off, and they're starting to be ready to go home. And in Radu and Duana's unit, Wesley makes that known. He says, like, Duana, I feel bad for you that you can't have any kids. I thought Rochella was their kid. Whose kid is Rochella?
I don't think she's their kid, but she's just the last person born.
Okay.
I don't think so.
But Wesley says, none of us want to be here, and we will not cooperate. And then later that night, we see Wesley sneak out of bed and warp to the custodian's room.
More spycraft shit. I love it.
Yeah.
This is great. I'm so proud of him.
Right? He whispers at the custodian, and the custodian answers back full volume. I thought that was a fun bit.
So he's trying to get a location on all the kids. The custodian shows it to him, and then he goes into each of the kids' rooms and gathers them, and he says, I think I know how to get us home, and I need your help.
Back on the D, Crusher suspects that whatever is happening on this planet may be related to something that happened on Earth in the early 21st century. COVID? Fuck!
No, it's worse. It's the other damage that we're currently doing to the Earth.
Yeah, she says their ozone layer may have been weakened. Wesley has all the kids gathered, and he's organizing a hunger strike. Passive resistance. Don't do anything they want us to do, and then they won't want us anymore.
He's so smart. They're asking questions. Won't they get mad at us? That kind of stuff. And he assures them that this is the way to do it. And they all have to do it together or it's not going to work. But Rochella comes in and she sees this little staff meeting of the kids. And she's like,
busted.
What are you all doing in here?
But when she tries to pick up Alexandra, Wesley jumps in front of her and picks her up instead.
Duana, I feel badly for you that you have no children. But I have to tell you that we don't want to be here. And we will not cooperate.
Top of Act 5, it's time to start tying off the loose ends. Crusher comes in with the solution. This is just radiation poisoning causing the sterility, and it's completely reversible. Data's efforts to isolate the frequency or whatever they need to beam through the shield will take weeks, so that's off the board. So they're going to have to use those weaknesses in the shield instead. But it's too risky to try to beam the kids up, so instead they're going to beam Riker and Data down to try to sneak in and knock out the power to the shield while Picard stalls them.
Back on the planet, Lita is trying to get the kids to eat. So they're all sitting around the table and she brings a bunch of food in. She's like, this will get them, Yeah. Hungry kids. And of course, Alexandra goes for some fruit and Wesley's like, no, he's so good with these kids.
Mm-hmm.
Alexandra, the little one, she's like, why? And he just explains, I know you're hungry, but this is our way of telling them that we don't want to be here and that we want to go home.
Riker and Data are standing by in the transporter room, and they throw the switch at the exact same moment that Picard and Beverly are yoinked back to the planet by Radu, and they arrive safely and head right into the custodian's room. And Data quickly determines that this computer responds to authorized voice commands only, But he somehow has the ability to like scramble the input so that nobody can give it commands.
Whatever.
Meanwhile, Radu is like, Picard, you have got to talk to these children. They're on some kind of fucking hunger strike. And I just, look, man, I'm not very good with children. And Picard's like, I thought you said you'd been watching Star Trek The Next Generation. I'm famously terrible with children.
I thought that was funny. That maybe there was meant to do that whole I'm not good with children.
Yeah.
Picard isn't either. He comes in to see Wesley and the kids just to check on them. And Wesley's like, I knew you'd come. But he's like, we're not out of the woods yet. We're looking for a power source. And Wesley kind of lets him know all the stuff that he's found. He's like, I found out how the computer works, but it's a different system than ours.
And then Harry, sweet little Harry, he asks Picard, if you have to leave us here, will you tell my dad I'm sorry I made him angry? And Picard's like, no, but you can tell him when you get back.
Oh.
And I didn't mention this earlier, but the scene where they're all in the conference room trying to like calm the parents and reassure them that we're going to get these kids back, Harry's dad said something to the other parents about like the last thing I said to him, I yelled at him. The last conversation we had, I was mad at him because he was running around the hallways knocking into Riker.
Oh.
So they both, father and son, kind of feel this like they need to, you know, make amends and apologize for making each other angry.
And then Alexandra, being the cute little Alexandra that she is.
I love her so much.
I know.
She got this raggedy ass tribble in her hand every time we see her. I love it so much.
Oh, don't you remember being that age and dragging around some toy all the time? But so that's her toy. She makes Picard uncomfortable. Again, she's very open with her affection. So she comes up to Picard and holds up her arms, pick me up. And he softens a bit and gives her a hug.
So Picard and the children all warp back into Radu's unit quite unexpectedly. And Crusher is trying to explain this radiation poisoning thing. And I love this because the ozone layer was such a news story in the 80s.
Yeah.
It was all over everywhere all the time. We were all talking about the fucking ozone layer and it was Aquanet's fault or whatever.
There's a hole in it and we got to stop using hairspray.
Yeah. And the writers in the 80s predicting, like, if this is left unchecked on Earth, this radiation poisoning is what we could be experiencing now. So I love that. I love how it was such a contemporary problem to write into the future story, and Star Trek does that all the time.
Science.
Picard tries to explain that your shield is part of this problem, and Radu is just, at every turn, it isn't hearing it. He's stubborn. He's dug in. Crusher goes on to say that the sterility is just the most recent symptom of this radiation poisoning, but if these kids stay here, they'll also become sterile. It's not genetic, it's environmental.
Rashella seems to be a little bit more reasonable, and she's telling Radu, hang on a second, what if they're right? Instead of the children that we've taken being our way to fix our problem, what if we are just condemning them to the same fate?
Picard points out that they've become so reliant on the custodian's control over them that they don't even question it anymore.
And Radu says, well, they're just protecting their own interests. But she's like, well, so are we, hear them out. But Radu is like, you know what? Fuck this. And he tries to yoink them back. He touches the thing on his arm to yoink them back, but it doesn't work.
Radu's effort to yoink them away doesn't work because Data and Riker have unplugged the PC. So Picard calls to have the children beamed up, but Harry's like, wait a second. And he goes over to Accolon and thanks him. And he tells Accolon that he can have his dolphin carving. Besides, I can make another. And that was really reflective of like, we can't have kids, but you can make more. And I didn't notice that until right now either.
Nice. I didn't either. But it's like those we don't have emotional attachment to. And I give it to you freely.
Yes. The children are all beamed up, and Radu says, you have destroyed us. And Picard's like, no, you did that to yourself, but we can help you if you'll let us. And so they go in the power room, which is just this massive space. It looks like an enormous warp core inside this thing. So this is the source of their power and their problems. And Radu tells Rochella they're going to have to learn all over again, learn to use the command line inputs, learn to use this power safely. And he finally accepts Picard's help. On the Enterprise, young Harry tells his father that he wants to be an artist and never see another calculus book ever again. And his dad says, well, you can be anything you want to be, which is when he should have stopped talking. But then he goes on to say, but you still have to take calculus. And Harry agrees to this, which is quite possibly the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen in Star Trek. And I've seen the animated series.
He's just happy to be back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he'll agree to anything right now, but tomorrow it'll be a different story. That's how kids are. Back on the bridge, apparently one of the things that they're going to do to help them is reseed the ozone layer. Wow.
That's a thing I didn't know we could do, but cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Can we do that? In order for their atmosphere to maintain integrity, they're going to have to drop their shield and their cloak, so they can never be clothed again.
Crusher has begun the fertility treatments and says that they're responding pretty well so far.
The IVF?
Yeah. Picard laments that the legend of Aldea will die now, but perhaps that will allow its people to live.
Troy says, well, we know that they'll make good parents. No, I don't think they will.
No.
I don't think they will. They don't know anything about love. So, no.
No, I agree. They're going to make shit parents. And then this button I absolutely love so much because I love Alexandra so much. Wesley steps off the turbo lift with Alexandra, still hanging on to that raggedy-ass Tribble plushie. And Picard is like, Wesley! Like he's about to go on his like no kids on the bridge rule. But she just wanted to thank Picard for bringing her home to her mother. So Picard awkwardly gets down on the floor in front of Alexandra, gets down on her level, and she gives him a flower or a weed. It looks like, you know, kids bringing you fucking weeds from outside all the time.
Yeah, and they think they've done something.
And she wraps her arms around him, and I don't think we've ever seen Picard more uncomfortable than he was in this moment.
So cute.
Yep. Wesley and Alexandra leave, and this is fucking crazy because I do not remember this bit at all. Picard stands up, and everybody on the bridge is giggling. And finally, we see Picard turn around, and he's facing away from camera here. And there, stuck to his back, is that Tribble Stuffy.
It's so cute.
It reminds me of like the end of the Tribbles episode where Kirk goes to sit down in the chair, and there's a big old Tribble that squeaks when he sits on it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Big laughs all around as we head off to the next adventure.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'll be glad to be relieved of this cargo.
Me too.
It is done, and perhaps just as well.
Yeah, but you know, I learned something today.
I sincerely hope that this is the last time that I find myself here.
You just don't get it, do you, Jean-Luc? You see, of all the species, yours cannot abide stagnation. Change is at the heart of what you are. That is the exploration that awaits you. Not mapping stars and studying nebula, but charting the unknown possibilities of existence.
Tribbles, who are also famously have lots of kids. It's funny that they use the Tribble.
Yeah.
They can't stop having kids.
Yes.
And then the Aldeans can't have any. So that's weird. I'm wondering why they did that.
I love it. Well, if Gene had his hand on it, it was to try to sell Tribbles. That was like remember in the original series when he came up with that infinite diversity and infinite combinations pendant that Spock wore, that the only reason it exists was because Roddenberry wanted to merchandise some shit and make some extra money.
He was smart.
Hell yeah. I used to have one of those.
Of course you did.
So this whole situation sets up once again the idea that these people feel trapped by their situation. They think they've tried all the solutions that are available, and so they've become so desperate that they'll do anything to get children.
They're just so dependent on their technology that they can't do anything for themselves. Their computer supplies all their needs. They don't have to think anymore, and they can concentrate on art and fun and culture, which is great. You should be able to do that, but you should also know and understand the world around you. We wouldn't even need to kidnap children had you taken the time to do the research to know your physiology and know what's happening with the environment. Eventually, you stop thinking for yourself when you're in that situation, which I
Yeah.
think is what's happening in the world right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. This should be a warning.
I like AI. I think it's great, but I think what it's going to produce is a whole generation after generation who don't know how to do anything unless the computer tells them. They're not going to know how to reason for themselves. It's scary to me.
This episode also backfires a little bit on my idea. Every time this happens, I always say, why don't you ask for help first?
Yeah.
And they kind of did here, but their asking for help was like, we want your kids, not help us figure out this technological problem.
Right.
And they were so insistent that their knowledge was far more advanced that there was no way the Enterprise crew was going to be able to find a solution to this. Let them try.
Yeah.
So this is like arrogance often blinds us to different approaches that might work better. Like, get over your shit and try different things.
And arrogance and miseducation. There's nobody who thinks they're right more than someone who's so fucking wrong.
Yep.
They are so loud about it, the fact that they know that they're right.
Yeah, it's an ignorant arrogance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we see lots of that today. There is one thing I liked here that I don't think TOS would have done. And you tell me if my feelings are right here. So at the end of this episode, after kidnapping a bunch of children and holding them hostage and throwing the Enterprise 3 days away, after all of that, Picard and company are still willing to help these people. Like, no matter how deeply they've wronged the Enterprise crew.
Yeah.
And I feel like Kirk and company would have likely just grabbed the kids back and warped the fuck away as fast as they could. Like, condemn this society to death. Or maybe they would have done we'll call Starfleet and maybe they'll send somebody else out here to help you, but we got shit to do, bye. So I like that. I like that, Picard and the team decide to stick around and help these people. And I think that's a profound lesson in not holding grudges or signing people off forever when they fuck up.
Yeah.
But to see the humanity in each other and offer help where you can. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. He had empathy for them. Even like you said, you fuck with my children, but I'm still going to help you because I think Picard, maybe they put themselves in that, not necessarily put themselves in their position, but they understand why. They understand the why behind their actions.
Right. So let me throw at you an alternate ending that came up while we were talking.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, so the resolution to this thing was basically like, we stole our kids back and we're trying to convince you that this problem is environmentally based. And we really didn't show them, like, we didn't get to see, come sit down and let me show you the evidence. Here's a graph or a chart or a visual or a whatever. Like,
they wouldn't understand it. I mean, because they've been dumbed down over the generations because they no longer focus on knowledge, but they more.
Yeah, but we didn't see how they were convinced that this was true. And I would have liked to have seen that. But what I really would have liked to have seen was I would have liked this society to willingly give the children back. And I would have gotten there by having Rochella sit in those feelings a little bit more. She's fallen in love with Alexandra and she wants this little girl to be her kid. And the idea that that Alexandra was supposed to be sent to some other parents should have connected her with that feeling of having your child taken away.
Right.
And that been the catalyst for her going to her people and saying, what we've done is wrong. That's how I wanted this episode to end.
Right. And I think they had some elements of that, but I think they could have really honed in on it. Like the whole first Rochella being, falling so in love with this child that she can't even give it up to the parents that she's supposed to go to.
Right.
And that was, okay. She is now in the position that she's already put someone else in, and she knows, and she has an inkling of how it feels. And then when in the scene where she was holding Alexandra and Alexandra saying, I want my mommy.
Yeah.
Because they should have honed in on that too, because that was a moment where she should have realized, what have I done? But no.
Yeah. Yep, that's my punch up. That's how I would have ended it.
Yeah, makes sense.
We can handle all the pleasantries later. Now, let's get down to business.
I am willing to pay handsomely for you. I think you've had a little too much to drink.
Now, what do you know about my money?
Your money.
The money he stole!
You stole his money?
Those vouchers I gave you were every bit as good as Latinum.
You can spend Latinum almost anywhere. Those vouchers are only good at your bar.
As always, we want to thank all of the patrons who support the show. We want to thank everybody for listening and supporting the show. We especially want to thank our founding admirals. A special thanks to Russell, Allie, Peter, Sarah, Sherry, and Bruce. And thanks to everybody who supports Humanist Trek.
Captain, Starfleet Academy is requesting an update on our estimated arrival.
Finalists, please take your seats.
I must admit you have a very fast mind.
Once I realized it was a trick question, there was only one answer.
Although only one student will be chosen for the Academy, any of you could easily qualify. Candidates, good luck.
You got called to the superintendent's office. It's a story I'd like to hear.
Beck is back now with the answer to this week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge for When the Bough Breaks. Remind us the question.
In addition to Wesley, there were 6 children in this episode. How many of them were real-life siblings to Will Wheaton?
I said 1. You said 2.
And I was
Sarah.
right.
Affirmative.
You were right.
Woo! How do you know you were right? I didn't say you were right.
Because we've done the thing now, and we
Yeah,
already
we watched
know.
the episode.
You're just ruining my whole fire.
Oh, so sorry. Go ahead. Pretend that
I
didn't
thought
happen.
you only enjoyed it when you got to tell us you were both
no,
wrong. And go,
I kind of have a whole other shtick that some people might have caught on to, but Sarah was right.
Fine, go ahead.
Because I hate admitting when Sarah is right.
Oh.
The whole thing.
Okay, do your thing.
My God. So it was Jeremy and Amy Wheaton were the children, and they played Mason and Tara.
Do we know anything else about them? I didn't look anything else up about
they
them.
both seem to have other IMDb pages. I didn't really go dig too deep into them because I was short on time when I was doing this research.
Interesting. Okay, next week then we'll be reviewing Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 18, Home Soil. A powerful microscopic life form declares war on humans, takes over the Enterprise's lab and computers, and threatens to destroy the ship. Allie, what do you remember about Home Soil?
It was like the Horta Part 2 in a way.
Yes.
That's all. That's I remember that.
I remember it's the little flashy light being that they find on this planet, and that's pretty much what I remember. Yeah. What's our question for Home Soil?
In this episode, we see the first ever reference to what ship facility on the Enterprise?
It's some sort of lab.
Yeah, it's gotta be because that's in the takes over the Enterprise's lab. Have we seen a lab before?
Well, it's the specific lab. Maybe it's the sick bay lab or something. Because I remember.
Well, we haven't seen. Oh God.
Maybe what else have we not seen?
I remember they beamed this thing up to the Enterprise. I remember that.
We've seen everything else, surely. It's some sort of lab. I don't know.
It's the bathroom. we see the shitter for the first time. Of course, that begs the question. Like we know in New Trek that they reconstitute shit into food.
It's pretty good for shit.
Yeah, Becca's face was just priceless just then. But in 90s Trek, the shit goes where? Is it like an airplane? You just open the gate and it flies out into space.
Yeah, you drop a blue iceberg into space.
So disgusting.
Every time someone flushes.
Okay, what are we gonna do? We're gonna go lab. Final answer.
Some sort of lab to do with Crusher. Yeah, some sort of medical lab. I don't know.
Okay, a medical lab. I think we're both gonna agree on this because I don't have anything else.
I don't remember.
All right, if you'd like to play along, you know how to do that. Head out to your social media, share the episode, use the hashtag Starfleet Challenge somebody needs to take Bear down a peg now. So,
no, he's figured out he's got a system now. He's figured out a loophole.
And then next time we'll be reviewing Star Trek: The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 18, Home Soil.
Glory to your house.
Make it show, number 1.
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcast. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.